Private life is private life, and we need to put government back in its lane. And the people to do that are not people from government, they're people from real life. So I don't come with DC's perspective. That's probably clear at this point, right? There are folks in DC who want concentrated power. I talked to Don Young about this personally. Don Young lamented many times the lack of authority in the committee chairs. When Don Young was a committee chair, he had the power to move things through the House. The concentration of power and leadership has made things very difficult for members in the House, right? And look, I think that the restoration of regular order that's been attempted, we need to keep going for that. These omnibus bills or minibus bills, they prevent us from actually cutting government and putting it back in its lane. So I want to go down there with a fresh perspective, a different perspective, the perspective of actual business person trying to put government in its proper place so that the rest of us can just live our lives. Is there anything wrong with that? No.
Some people have mentioned that you lack military experience. How will you support our military and our veterans in our country?
If you're one of those people, come to me afterward. Let's have a conversation. I am 100%, let me be clear, 100% behind our military. 100%. I mentioned my grandparents raised me. My grandfather, Korean War veteran, okay, Air Force. His brother shot down in Vietnam, POW, 5.5 years. I had a cousin stepped on a landmine in Vietnam on his second tour. Died. Let me tell you about my view about the military. There's a lot of politicians who are more than happy to send men and women, your sons and daughters, your nieces and nephews into war. Sometimes it's necessary, but I'm going to tell you right now, that needs to be a seriously thought out decision. You cannot flippantly send people to war, to die in a foreign land without serious thought. Because these are our neighbors, these are our kids. So I come from a military family. I know that surprises some people in this room. You say, well, you're a Begich. Well, you got two sides. And I don't need to be a biologist to tell you that.
Yeah!
Mary Peltola claims to support resource development. How will you make the case that you're the candidate that will support and increase our resource development?
Well, there's a theory among some, and it's a small number of people, I don't think there's anyone in this room that believes this, that having a Democrat might be helpful to Alaska because that person could make the case for Alaska on their side of the aisle. Well, it hasn't worked. 64 executive orders targeting Alaska. This is the worst president we've ever seen.
Amen.
It doesn't matter what Mary Peltola says. It matters what she does.
Right, that's right.
Who's she supporting for president? Joe Biden. You can't be on that side of the aisle and be for resource development. They're not going to let you. They don't care what she thinks. They don't care what she says. She wants to claim credit for Willow. You know what Joe Biden said 2 or 3 weeks after Willow? And you can go look it up. I'll butcher the quote, but I'll get close. He was on the stage with Trudeau in Canada and was asked by a reporter, why did you approve Willow? He didn't say it was because Mary Peltola convinced me it was a good idea. You know what he said? He said, my inclination was to disapprove of this project across the board. But my attorneys at Interior told me that if I did, I might very well lose in court, and then I wouldn't be able to do what I really wanted to do, which is to take millions of acres of Alaskan sea and land off the table forever. That's what Joe Biden said. He didn't say Mary Peltola helped him. He didn't say he saw the light. He said he really wanted to kill it, but he thought he'd get more if he just said yes. You can't make deals with Democrats. They're not going to honor it. They're not going to honor it. And so I'd say, to answer that question, I'm going to be on the right team. Now, I will tell you this, it's not just about being on the right team. I happen to know a lot about resource development. I own part of a copper prospect in Alaska, 812 acres, patented mining ground, Wrangell St. Elias National Park. It's a good quality prospect. I've done my homework on minerals. You know, it's not billions of dollars that Alaska has in the ground just in minerals, it's trillions of dollars. Trillions. And those resources have become stranded. We just saw what happened in the Ambler District. You know that road is guaranteed under Anoka. That's a guaranteed right-of-way. And you know what Interior had to say about this? This blew my mind. One of the reasons why they said they rejected this is because there's no operating mines in the area. Look, if you don't have a road, you can't have a mine. How are you going to get it out? We're supposed to take this out with blimp? This is ridiculous. This is what we're up against. They're gaslighting us. They're laughing at us with a comment like that. That's absurd. They've got it out for our state. You got to have someone down there who understands the resources that we have, understands the argument that needs to be articulated, and can carry that argument to people of all persuasions. Look, Joe Biden has said, I'd rather have these metals come from China than the United States. I'd rather have those rare earths come from China, where they, in some cases, have 100% of the global market. That's absurd. We need Trump back in office.
Yeah! Heroes!
We need a Republican Senate. And we need to grow the majority in the House so we can move this stuff forward. Okay. Okay, we're out of the pre-asked questions. Yes, sir.
So, being the fact that we're going to vote on a computer, we're voting on a computer here today, and you understand technology. Is there any way that we could get some accountability on this screen when we vote so that we really know that our votes counted and those things?
I haven't, okay, so to answer this question, I'd have to see the software and understand exactly how it works and what you can put up on the screen and whether people in here would want their votes recorded by name. It's a complex question without knowing more about this particular system, but obviously I would support greater transparency. The more transparency in voting that we have, the more confidence we have the result is accurate.
Good enough for me.
Hey, good afternoon, Nick. How are you?
Doing well.
I'm doing great.
Having fun.
From the Interior District 31, Vice Chair, Fairbanks, Isles and Greeley area. My question to you is, I've heard a lot of candidates speak about borders and all this, which I totally agree with. Nobody is concerned about families having to leave their families because there's no homes in Eielson or Wainwright. Veterans or active duty service, the cost of COLA was just dropped for our service members in the interior, which means they're struggling to make ends meet, because up there we have to winterize our vehicles, we have to auto start, we have to do all kinds of stuff. And I work for the DOD as well, and I'm dealing with some of these issues, and some of these people coming up are like, I can't believe we're not supported in a financial means which would help us find housing and this and that. So what is your stance on helping PCS rates? Or I'm one of those, I retired, thank God, who want to help our veterans. But we have the highest veterans per capita in Alaska, but a lot of them are starting to talk to leave because the cost is just getting ridiculous.
Right.
So what is your stance on helping veterans, active duty service members have an easy transition here and maybe want to come back and retire here like I did?
Yeah. Hey, let me just take a moment. If you're a veteran, would you stand, please? Would you please stand? Thank you, veteran. Thank you for your service. You know, we've got to do more to drive down the cost of living in Alaska. Okay? We've got to do more to drive down the cost of living. How do you do that? Number one, you drive down the cost of energy. You're talking about Fairbanks. I was talking with someone here, I won't point her out, but she was telling me that her utility bill this winter was $900. $900. For those who aren't in Fairbanks, I mean, it's so high, but it's usually not that high, right?
Yes, sir.
We've got to, and look, the answer is Alaskan Resources. The answer is gas line. That's right. Bullet line or otherwise. We've got to get some gas into Fairbanks. Because the problem is, we got a lot of veterans who come up here, people who come up during their service. They can't wait to come back, right?
Yes, sir.
The grandparents who raised me, right? My grandfather, I mentioned, he was in the Air Force. His first station was up in Eielson, right? They loved it so much, they ended up coming back and staying here when he retired. And so we've got to drive down the cost of living. That's number one. We got to make sure that the people who are serving in our military can afford to live here as well, right? There is a huge problem with housing up in North Pole at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's not unique to North Pole. There's problems all over the state. Mm-hmm. You know, we got Coast Guard down in Southeast are having a hard time too, right?
Yes.
We got more people coming in Anchorage. They're having a hard time finding housing, and they're building more and more barracks, but they're not going to be done in time. It's actually delaying some of the deployments from Lower 48. So we've got to do more for housing. That means making the regulations a little easier for people to build, particularly in places like Anchorage, right? But those are things that need to be done. We also need more roads in this state. We talk about the cost of living. It doesn't. Yes. You know,
Oh yeah.
New federal roads in the last 40 years. 40 years. And what happens is, if you're in an outlying area, you got to fly things in. There's a lot of veterans who live in rural Alaska too. They're off the road system.
Yes, sir.
Alaskan Natives and others, and people are moving out of those rural areas into cities right now because they can't afford to stay out there. The cost of fuel is too high. The cost of groceries is too high. You know, think about this. You know what it costs to send a 12-pack of Coke from Anchorage to Barrow to Utqiagvik? $10 in shipping alone from Anchorage to up on North Slope. Think about how expensive it is. We need roads. Roads drive that cost down. Rail drives that cost down. So that's my answer.
Thank you, I appreciate it. One more quick.
Yeah.
How are you going to help the suicide rate?
Oh, you know, it's a complex question. I think there's a few factors I'll address. Okay, number one, people in the military need to know that they're valued. Okay, they need to know that they're valued, and when they enter our communities, we need to welcome them into our families and our homes and make them feel as though, because they are, that they are valued. They're a valuable part of our community. That's number one. It's a soft thing, but it makes a difference. Okay. Number two, we got to make sure that our communities have things for people to do. Right. I was talking with somebody. They were hiring a GS12 bowling alley manager which is pretty high for those who spending time with a bowling alley manager up in Fairbanks to make sure that folks had something to do. Particularly up north, it can be, if you're not from Alaska, it can be tough to adjust. Let's say that. 50 below outside, you got to have accommodations for people. And we need to do more, honestly, for mental health counseling, particularly for those who have served overseas. That's right.
All right.
These are people that have put their lives on the line for our nation. And we need to do everything that we can do to make sure that they understand how much we appreciate their service. And so thank you, you bet. I know we got questions on this side, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Begich. I would like to know what you're going to do to protect parental rights, not just in the state of Alaska, but everywhere. I feel like parental rights are under attack, and so are our children, and I'm going to give a couple examples. We can talk about the library issue and books in the library, and the sexualizing and the child sexual assault material that's being given to our kids across the nation, and being indoctrinated into things that we don't want as Christians and just as parents in general. And another comment would be, did you know that sex offenders in the state of Alaska can have pornography if it's in cartoon form? So these graphic novels that are in libraries and being given to our children, and we're being asked as parents to ignore, and we have no rights to even discuss it, are being abused. But again, pornography that's in cartoon form can be given to sex offenders, and it's not against the law. So what are you going to do to change our rights and protect them and change that? Thank you.
It's a great question. And let me tell you, as a parent, this, pardon my language, this is bullshit. Okay?
Hurrah!
we hear from the left, oh, the right's trying to ban books. That's nonsense. We're trying to protect our kids. We're trying to protect their innocence. Kids deserve the chance to be innocent. You're going to be an adult later, but you can only be a kid once.
Sir.
It infuriates me if that's not clear. Okay. I get infuriated because I have a 12-year-old son. I don't want him exposed to this stuff. He doesn't need this. Not in a school library, not in publicly funded education. Mary Peltola, just as a contrast, voted against the Parents' Bill of Rights Act, which would have addressed, in part of this issue with the libraries. Okay? You can be daggone sure that I will support any legislation that's going to protect our kids. And I'll go you one further. Title IX, which, by the way, Ted Stevens pioneered, that was his legislation. You know, in 2016, we were told, oh, the Republicans have a war on women. Democrats can't even tell you what a woman is. We have to protect our young ladies in sports. They have the right to compete against other biological women, okay? And we don't get to redefine what science is because it's politically convenient in the moment. Take one more.
Okay. So my other, well, it's kind of a comment question. I don't know if you're aware, but you know, children in the state of Alaska have to consent to going to treatment if they have substance use disorder from like the age of 14 up. And I would like to know what you can do to help parents advocate for their children and have those children be able to go, because obviously we all know it's a brain disorder.
We need to understand that kids are kids. They can't make decisions about many things in life. We don't allow it, okay? You're not able to go out and buy cigarettes or drink alcohol, right? It's illegal if you're a kid.
Tattoos.
And yet we're allowing kids to make life-altering decisions about whether or not they're going to be able to go into a treatment program. Obviously, an addict doesn't want to go into a treatment program. That's unusual, right? A parent needs to make that decision for their child. And while we're on the topic, let's just talk about this whole gender issue, okay? Mary Peltola, again, contrast, Mary Peltola tweeted out last year that everyone should donate to Identity Inc. Identity Inc. is an Anchorage-based nonprofit that supports gender transitions for minors. You're gonna let a minor, maybe they're 10, maybe they're 12, make life-altering decisions about their body at that age? No. It's ridiculous. And that's why I'm talking about the culture war today too. Because it's not just the fiscal house. It's who we are as a nation that's at stake. And that's the pivot point for 2024. That's what's at stake for our nation. As you move forward, as you leave tonight and today, you go home to your communities. Yes, we had rules discussions. They were long. I know. I heard all about it. Okay? But that's not the point of this. The point of this is not to have rules discussions. They're important. Don't get me wrong. I know it's people on all sides of those issues. But the reality is, the point of why we organize, the point of why we're a grassroots organization, is to make sure that we're electing people who reflect our values.
That's right.
So we're going to get up, we're going to go to work tomorrow, we're going to go to work electing Republicans, we're going to grow our majority in the State House, we're going to get a Republican-controlled State Senate.
Yeah!
And we're going to go to work addressing the issues that we've talked about today. Let's fix this nation. Let's fix America. Let's make America great again. Thank you.
Hoorah! Nick!
think that there's a presentation that that's going to be made by our vice chair, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Mike. And one sec. I know we're out of time, but you deserve a minute. You deserve a minute.
Put a 1 in the chat if you want me to keep live streaming.
If I could invite the rest of the SEC up really quick. Jason, if you'd like to come up.